there's going to be a true utility coming to crypto, because most people don't want to deal with wallets, and the complex way the transactions happen,
100%.
and the complex way the DeFi does these transactions. Most people can't interact with it. And again, one of the applications of our agents is a true peer-to-peer trading DEX. But then comes, what are these tokens? Dogs with hats or whatever? But it doesn't matter. People want to trade it. There is something to be traded with. What this will unlock, the agents, the AI itself, the models that we're building, it will unlock utility in crypto.
Today's guest is Humayun Sheikh, the founder and CEO of FetchAI. There are a lot of AI startups and companies out there, but FetchAI has been around since 2017, which is a long time in the AI space, considering I feel like a lot of the hype just popped up a few years ago. I'm excited to have Humayun on the show today to talk about the crypto AI landscape, AI in general, what they're working on internally, and a lot more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jacquelyn. Really appreciate the invite, and it's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. To start off, always like to ask our guests, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you even landed in the crypto space? Maybe for you, it's a bit of crypto and AI, though.
Yeah, sounds great. My background is computer science. I was part of DeepMind right from the beginning. I was the first investor there. I was also part of the first 5 people who started it. And we exited in 2013. And from 2013, I've been looking at working around AI space, and I've been working since 2006 and 2007 in the space, but more in the gaming space and the AI and gaming. And so once we came out of DeepMind, it was quite clear that was the future. AI is the future, but it was also very clear that we're going to need a lot of compute. We also need to have new infrastructure, which we need to build on when this new wave of AI kind of comes and starts getting commercialized. So then I spent a few years finding the right niche and the right combination. And at that point, it became clear, 2 things became clear. One is to deploy AI to the masses, we're going to need agents. Again, we can go into the definition of agents, but just the general term AI agents. And to have those AI agents, and if you don't want one single or just a few entities to control all of that, then you're going to need some form of decentralization for record keeping, auditability, and blockchain actually was absolutely the right framework to do it in. And although I had been in crypto since 2006 and 2007. I've been kind of looking at Ethereum, knew the initially, which was working on Ethereum. So combining those 2 technologies became the mission for FetchAI.
When you say you've been in crypto since 2006, you mean like cryptography before Bitcoin?
No, crypto in the sense of actually owning BTC and Ethereum. And
Ethereum wasn't around in 2006.
I mean, there was things going around. So it wasn't around. Ethereum wasn't around, but the technology was around. So we were actually, so decentralized ledger technology has been around for a while. Yeah.
You talked about how it was clear to you that AI was the future and there was going to be a large need for these data sets. But when you think back to 2017, that's 7, 8 years ago now, what was kind of the state of AI then? Were there other startups launching similar to yours? Did you see competition, or did you see like a gap in the market that you wanted to fit?
Yeah, we didn't have much. People didn't understand how or why would AI and crypto kind of merge together or combine together. And to be fair, AI was not really the flavor of the month, as you call it. So it wasn't the flavor. Because we've seen so many winters and summers in AI already, and this kind of might feel a bit different, but they will still be cooling off. So it was actually quite interesting how unaware people were what was coming, and we felt that the combination was the right combination, and it made technological sense to put it together. So there weren't many projects, but there were some projects. Like one of the projects was Singularity. That was a project which was working with trying to be decentralized AGI. Of course, that's a big mission. We had others like some data companies, privacy and security. So all those components which you need for building a combination of AI with blockchain, they were starting to come across, but there wasn't any true leader in the space.
How do you feel about the centralized AI teams out there, or the models that are being created that don't really have an open source component to them?
We're always going to have all of this because money flows into commercialization, and commercialization generally means centralization as well. I'm not saying that's true always, and that's what we're trying to break here, the cycle. But you'll always see competitive advantage coming from a centralized system. So in the sense of the question, which is like, how do I see it? I see that there is value in it, and I see that there is going to be a lot more development which will happen here. And the reason why I say that is because centralized systems are easier to manage, and easier to control, and much more scalable, easier, quicker. And there is a commercial reasoning behind it, so you can actually raise enough funding behind it, and then you can actually launch it. So on that side, I think these centralized systems are going to continue, and they will get stronger and more powerful over time. Yeah.
What about the crypto AI landscape and how it's evolved over the years? I feel like a year or 2 years ago, it was like an emerging term. A lot of people in the space were talking about it. Now it's extremely hot. You've been at it for a number of years before it was trending, and now it's very trending. How do you think it's evolved for better or for worse?
Well, crypto does have this overhyping of things. And
of course,
a lot of people would not like me saying that, but that is the truth because, everybody knows that.
Yes.
We do have this ability to first ignore everything. And then once it becomes popular, then that's what it's all about. And there's nothing else. So we do that. But having said that, what has happened in this time is with OpenAI coming out, it became very clear to everybody that AI is definitely the future. It's coming, and it has its benefit, it has its advantages, and we're going to see more of it. So that once that became clear, then people started looking at, okay, how can you take that and how can you apply that into blockchain? And of course, people started seeing why blockchain and decentralized technologies were useful in actually creating this decentralized AI landscape. So it became understood, and then some genuine projects started kind of coming into the space. But there is a lot of hype, of course, and there's a lot of there's a lot going on which is meaningless, I think. But I guess, I can't judge that because if the market wants something, then the market has something, right?
Of course,
so whatever the market wants,
right?
Who am I to say right or wrong? But you will start seeing the hype. Again, everybody is building agents, but you don't really. Agents have multiple meanings. Agent could be a piece of software which is just connected to an LLM. That's not agentic implementation, but everybody is now jumping on the bandwagon. But that's kind of, I feel we're going to slowly come off that hype, and reality will start to kick in soon.
Yeah, when it comes to AI agents, for many people in the crypto space, there's been like a recent obsession with them, the tokens associated with them, the fact that an AI agent can tweet and it's got all these followers. And, I don't really understand the hype. I think there is value to be tapped into with AI agents. And it's almost like it's learning how to really find its footing in the space, and then like actual use cases will pop up. I'm curious your thoughts on that and whether or not that fits into maybe the category of like these meaningless AI narratives and trends that are out there right now, or do you see meaning and value in this?
I would actually tend to agree with you. A lot of these things are just simple automations, and I don't feel there is that much value in it. The only value which is added is because you have now LLMs. So you can actually create an automation process which can post the tweet.
Amazing.
And in the background, and in the background you have an LLM.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not. But people don't follow it, and because people follow it, it becomes a thing. Robotic process automation has been around for years. All it does is just automates a task, and some of this is just simple automation, writing a script and automating something,
right.
And connecting an LLM to it in a meaningful way just creates that feeling of intelligence, which truly isn't there. There might be some elements of it, but a true agentic system would be a complete change of how we write software or how we write applications. That's the key kind of differentiator for agents. How do we build application layer? How do we build application for more complex tasks? Because that's where hard coding automation breaks down. And that's where also, don't forget, a lot of LLMs break down. Because you can have a conversation with these LLMs, but when it comes to actually doing an implementation of something, it's quite difficult. Coding is pretty good because it's still textual, but when you start trying to put services together, we're still at that stage of one-to-one integration. So picking up an API, automating that API, and using the LLM to spurt something out is not really something I'm very excited about. What I'm more excited about is this whole ecosystem where these agents exist, they communicate with each other, they actually collaborate with each other to actually carry out a task or application, or kind of an intent. So if you give an intent to the LLM, which then it kind of breaks it down into different tasks and does function calling or agentic calling in this case. And the agents actually have this cognitive layer where they can decide and they can learn, and there is reinforcement learning behind it. And then you actually deliver the final objective. And I think that's ultimately going to be how we operate in the future, because you don't have to write that much code all the time.
Okay. What's the timeline for that? For these integrations and interactions between AI agents, or is it already happening?
It's happening. That's what Fetch actually does. So we have the infrastructure. We have the infrastructure, so leading right to it. We have the infrastructure which enables you to build, smaller agents, which very, very specific tasks, but have communication capability, learning ability. And then you can actually create an intent, and that intent then goes and connects to these agents and deliver the final task. But to do that, there are multiple things which need to happen. You need to have a infrastructure and a framework where these agents can actually register themselves. So how do you find them? How do you connect with them? There needs to be a common communication protocol where these agents can actually speak to each other. The LLMs need to have a much more specific ability to actually identify these agents and actually decide which agent will carry out multiple of these tasks, and how can you orchestrate it. So these components are not very easy to just, you can put one like a vertical agent together, but you can't do at this point a combination of multiple agents dynamically on the fly once you know what the application layer looks like. So to enable that, you have to have that infrastructure. And that's the infrastructure which Fetch already has now kind of deployed. This is functioning. You can actually build your agent. You can actually register your agent. Other agents can find and communicate with that agent in a meaningful way and actually carry out multiple subtasks to kind of complete the intent-based objective. So that's the full framework that we need to be operational. And that exists right now. And of course, it's going to get better and better.
Mm-hmm. How do you see that impacting people's everyday lives or actions?
Well, one good example, and this is the application which is being released as we speak. The application is that every person, every individual, without complicating and talking just about how to write an agent or what to do with an agent, has an agent in their pocket, right? So these agents, and when I say agents, I mean, I'd like to kind of distinguish the agents. There is a meta agent, which is just for communicating with LLMs. I'm not talking about those agents.
Okay.
Then you have the whole raft of other agents that need to kind of connect with each other. So if you have an agent and you deploy a meta agent which understands your language and your intent or your command or your objective, so you feed that into it, and then it goes and it has the ability, for example, to search websites. It has the ability to connect to different services. It has the ability to connect to your calendar, for example, and look at your calendar space to arrange a meeting with a friend or a dinner and then book a cab and a restaurant. That has to become seamless in your life because at the moment it's quite clunky. It's very broken.
And manual, right? Yeah.
It's very manual. Even if you put an agent on a restaurant booking app of any kind, you're speaking to the agent and you're going to that app. Yes, okay. I mean, somebody might say, well, now you will have the ability to go and open the right app through the agent. Well, that again is very, inefficient. What needs to happen is the agent takes it, goes away, solves all your problems, comes back, any questions, you answer them, it executes the task. That I feel is what's coming for a consumer. And it's coming very soon because everything we need in its basic form is here already. And of course, we're going to keep improving. So that's one thing on the consumer side. But then you will start seeing AI and agent interactions everywhere. So when you have a self-drive car, how it communicates with the infrastructure. For example, you need to charge. How does it communicate with the charging point? How does it actually book the space, connects with it, pays for it? You driving on a road, how can a sign interact with you? All of this will become agentic, but more interestingly, decentralized effectively, because all these things are going to be owned by different people. So you want to connect with them without worrying about, can I trust this? Can I not trust this? So you have a trustless system. Ownership is immaterial. Of course, not for the owner, but for you as a consumer of the service, you don't really care. I mean, as long as your service gets delivered and you know what the price is going to look like. So e-commerce will change quite considerably, I feel, with this new way of doing things. We don't have to write and rewrite a lot of the code, because if you think about, we're already on that path. So if you look at microservices, so microservices are internal, but you have a microservice, for example, a payment microservice, or some kind of other microservice which does one very specific task, and you put the software together. Now, if you think of all those microservices being written once by somebody or a few times, depending on the quality of what the agent can do, then you don't have to keep rewriting them. You can actually consume the service from that agent. And the way we write software, the way we execute software, that will change. At the moment, we're just scratching the surface by saying, oh, my agent can write this software, and 10 other agents can write the same software again and again. but the true efficiency will come when you actually don't have to keep writing this software and you don't have to keep running this software in different machines. So that's where the agentic network will really have the impact in terms of the developer community. And in terms of the businesses, I think what will be quite interesting is the cost of building software, cost of showcasing the product or interacting with your customer is obviously coming down. But don't forget, agents are not everything. You have machine learning models which are in the background.
Right.
So LLM is only one, right? So you will need hundreds of thousands of these models.
What shouldn't they do? Like, obviously, I see the value in making things like booking a restaurant reservation or organizing my calendar or small interactions better. But what is something that you think we should leave to the human still?
Well, I think it's quite.
what should you and I be doing that we shouldn't just hand off to an agent? Yeah. A podcast, maybe, right?
A podcast, but also I think negotiations are going to be easier if they are very straightforward. But when I say negotiation, that's a very general term. When I say, what I mean is that the way we interact with each other will still play an important part, and I don't think we'll be able to replace that with just agents. It's the menial tasks which we don't really want to do. If you and I go for lunch, we don't, first finding the calendar time and then booking it and then arranging it. It's not really something we should be doing. Having a lunch and having a conversation and
that we should be doing
all of that is that we should be doing.
Right.
But also, I think innovation, although the pace of innovation is increasing because of these machine learning models, it still needs a human kind of interface where, although you have 10x or 100x the ability to consume knowledge, you still have that need for kind of innovation. Now, if you keep training these models with the same data or a synthetic data, then your outcome is going to become stagnated and it's going to become the same. So humans stay in the loop to actually keep improving it.
Okay, that makes sense. And then FetchAI recently launched introduced its large language foundation model for agentic AI models. How does this kind of expand upon like the conventional AI models that are discussed recently with like OpenAI, DeepSeek, and others? Remember trying to move your assets between chains, watching the minutes tick by, wondering if your transaction would make it? Yeah, we've all been there. But here's the thing. While other bridges feel like taking the scenic route, Across is your express lane. Base, Arbitrum, Optimism, boom, boom, boom. Your assets move between them faster than you could say cross-chain. Across isn't just another bridge. When Uniswap needed the fastest, most reliable way to move assets cross-chain, they chose Across. Now, millions of Uniswap users are swapping between chains without even thinking about it, because that's how it should be. Whether you're moving assets yourself or building the next big thing in crypto, Across makes cross-chain feel like the same chain. No more scenic routes, no more complexity, just 2-second transfers between chains. Ready to join the Express Lane? Head to across.to and experience what bridging should have been all along.
Yeah, so the purpose of our model was more towards building these agentic executions rather than trying to just do the textual ones, which already exist quite well. So although our LLM is able to do the same textual responses and does that quite well, it's very comparable to any of the bigger models, where we are different is really the reasoning side, because if you think of implementing an agentic flow, in the agentic flow you have these checkpoints of executing these tasks. So if you want to do one task, or either in parallel or in series, you have to make those evaluations again and again. So for example, in DeepSeek you'll have this model which will reason right up front based on your question, but doesn't do kind of step by step intermediary reasoning. And what we need here is the agent's tasks, whatever the agent can do, has to be taken into account. And the large language model actually refers to those actions which the agents will take and does sub-reasoning before it executes any task. So that's where we are quite unique. So as the performance goes, on the agentic network side, we kind of a way better performance than any others because we are specifically built for this purpose, in the sense that how do you build agentic systems? How do you build these agents which are much better at finding what they need to execute and then actually finding the tools to execute it with? So that's really the focus of this large language model.
Mm-hmm. And when you say agentic, what do you mean by that? That is like the agents in a system? Yes.
Agents in a system. So how do you actually complete a task? The task could be anything, like you mentioned, posting something on Twitter. But to do that, I mean, a simple task like posting something on Twitter includes taking an AI model to give you sentiment analysis, for example, another AI model to give you the current topics which are happening. So when you build this kind of agentic system, what you need is your LLM to be aware of what the agents are available to carry on and carry out these tasks, and then justify why it actually connected with those agents to carry them out. So it kind of expands out from just language to actually executional kind of space where you actually have these agents which exist and they carry out these tasks. So understanding what the tasks they carry out and then utilizing that to build the orchestration and do the whole workflow. So you need to think about the agent workflow and then build that agent workflow, but do it dynamically and keep reasoning in the loop. So you're actually, when you execute a small task, then you rerun your own chain of thought and execute it much better.
I'm curious your thoughts on what are the opportunities with use cases for this technology beyond like the obvious ones that we've already discussed. I think there's possibility with like DeFi and then enterprise applications. Kind of, you hinted at that before, but then also like with mainstream sectors like energy, transportation, travel, where do you see like the best fit across maybe these categories, or are there other categories that you're eyeing to really tap into with this?
This technology fits really nicely where you have a complex task where either humans or something else needs to interfere or interject into the complexity of it. So giving you an example of, I mean, you mentioned travel. It's
like
a very
logistics,
good example.
Yeah.
Logistics, supply chain. They're quite interesting because supply chain, as we saw, I mean, the whole supply chain during COVID times got really disrupted.
Yeah.
It's because you have multiple entities doing multiple transactions, managing their own system, and then trying to interact with the system outside and to build something like a software which is monolithic, which actually you have to build the interfaces with each other. It's a very, very difficult task. I mean, health service is a very good example for it. If you look at health service either in the US or in Europe and the UK, it's very old system and it has multiple different sections of software which need to interface with each other, and they can't really cope with any of that. But what this does is completely turns it on its head and provides a very simplistic solution to a very complex problem. Because what you're doing is you're taking smaller components and you're actually agentifying them effectively, which means that they can actually make small decisions on their own, and not everything has to be hard coded into the system, which is the more difficult part. And using the language model, you can just actually speak to your software or speak to your agent to carry out the task rather than trying to type all this code. So where you had one developer to like 100 or 1,000 people who didn't know or didn't code, now you have anybody who can actually code effectively because they are speaking the same language, because the language is English, right? So, or any other language that you speak. You can do the instructions to your agents, you can do the instructions to the code, and you can carry out a very complex task. So anything where you have multiple entities interacting, anything where there is a complexity of solution is going to have a huge impact. Travel, logistics, supply chain, any of these medical, anything like that will really, really benefit from it.
Where can I go do that? Like, let's say after this episode, I want to go out and do exactly what you just said. How would I even get started if I have no experience or background in like creating any of this?
So we have an application, very basic application. And if you really want to just get used to it as an individual, you can actually download the app and you can actually run an agent within a minute. Your agent is ready. Now you can start connecting all the services to it. So for example, if you had some point built a spreadsheet somewhere which looks after,
I've built a lot of spreadsheets. Yeah.
You can then just connect your agent to it, and then the agent can start interacting with it. Ultimately, you need to have a spreadsheet. But if you have a communication method like WhatsApp or Slack, and you want to connect to it, and you want to say, hey, I just want to, but your entry point is the same, and you want to connect with it, then you can do so. You can actually connect multiple other services, your social media services. So as an individual, you can do that. But we also have a more enterprise or commercial solution where small business, medium businesses can actually go in, and they have an e-commerce system, which is the legacy system. They can very easily create an interface to the legacy system and actually kind of make the whole legacy system available through the agents, which means that your customers can interact with it much quicker, much easier. So we have all of those things. But I think what is also quite interesting is, as a business, you can have the earning potential, because you can actually train your own AI models, and then you can actually share it with the world and actually charge people for it, or charge other agents to use that agentic model. So I think there is that revenue generation, which is going to be a completely new source of revenue, which is we're going to see here, which is going to be, which we're already starting to see people build their own specialist models.
Yeah, I feel like in a way, and something I've heard from like software engineers is it kind of really eliminates the need to fully understand how to code, right? Like I could be able to whip up something. I have no coding experience, and then all of a sudden I could create something. Is that true?
Yes, of course you can. But the problem is still the same. That's only
there's still problems. Yeah.
There's still a problem. Because you might be able to write the code, but what are you going to, you're going to have to still run it. You're going to have to still deploy it. You're going to still have to create an interface around it. All of those things need to happen. But what I'm saying is, if you jump maybe a couple of steps ahead, you don't even need to do that, because your agent will understand your intent and your agent will do what you want it to do. You don't need to code effectively.
Okay, so the agent will just create it for me. No need to code, and then we have it.
You don't need to deploy the code. You don't need to even rewrite the code. Agent will actually carry out, because ultimately you're writing the code to do something.
But it's going to do it anyway, so don't write the code.
Why do you have to write the code?
How long would it take for me to make an app?
10 minutes.
Oh my God. That's what we should have done during this episode, creating an app together.
I'm sure we can do another one. We can show you exactly how that would work.
That's really interesting, because like I always think of it from, like I don't have a technical background. I didn't study software engineering. I've learned a lot about AI and obviously crypto over the years, but I don't think of this technology as for me. I think of it as for me in a tool, in the sense of like the common everyday task, but not in the context of like creating applications or products. But you're saying it could be.
Of course. I mean, so I'll give you a very basic example. Let's say you want to create a community. You're a cyclist and you want to create a cyclist community, right?
That checks out. Yeah.
That's...
I like Peloton. I use Peloton. I have a bike like that. Maybe not the type of cyclist you were talking about, but yes.
This is the AI models, right?
Okay. Yes.
You can have the inference. So what you want to do is you want to create a collection of people who can actually join that group. You guys can communicate, and you want to build something like that. But you don't need to build something like that. What you can say to your agent is, hey, deploy something on Agentverse, which is our fetch technology, which actually says anybody who's interested in cycling, anybody's agent who asks that question, direct it to me, and deploy a community for me where I can speak to people. Now, that's all you need to say to the agent. You don't need to write any code. It's done. So anybody who's looking for a cyclist community within a particular area will just be directed either to yourself or a few others. I mean, if they choose to come to you, you already got an application where you can either communicate with them, you can actually set different cycling kind of trips or whatever you need to do. Mm-hmm. So you don't need to write that extensive code, and you don't need to then have build this user interface. And again, this is one of the best user interfaces of this new generation. Is not going to be you have multiple screens showing multiple applications. There's no need. And that's what we're going to see, the change. So you don't need to write code that way, but you still have to provide a service. You have to provide an application. And so how do you build that application is in a different way. Your agent will represent your application, your service that you're offering.
Mm-hmm. What is the benefit to FetchAI in all of this? Like, how do you guys kind of profit off of people using your services? If I deploy something with it, do you then own it in a way or no?
No, we don't. So there are multiple revenue streams. One, if I start from where we started from, which is the agents. So you want to build an agent, you want to run an agent, you want to host an agent. So it's very much like hosting something on Amazon Cloud or hosting a drive on Dropbox. So you're hosting your agent somewhere, which becomes live. People can speak to it. It's like having a website.
Mm-hmm. What's the cost for that?
It's going to be very similar to running a website, right? So maybe $200-$300 a year or something.
Okay.
So plus then you can then add services to it. You can add connections to it. So that's where you have the agents. But these agents need other services. It needs AI models, specialist AI models. I'll give you another example. So let's say in the medical sector, and as you know, the AI models are getting better and better for radiography, for pathology, all of that. So somebody like medical professionals can build these specialist models, and these specialist models can be available on Agentverse, which is our hub or nexus for agents to be found. And you as a doctor, you have a patient who has an X-ray and you want to get it checked out. You will just say to your agent, here's the X-ray, give me the report, right? I'm still going to assess it, but here's my preliminary AI-based report, which, to be fair, is getting 95, 97, 98% correct, right? So it's getting very, very accurate. So you can generate revenue from building these machine learning models. Then you can actually host these models through agents. So we generate revenue there for the ability to train these models, host these models, and then utilize these models. But the model belongs to you. If you built it, it's yours. Mm-hmm. We don't take ownership of that model.
Okay, that makes sense. That's super interesting. And I think the last major question I had for you is like, there has been a lot of development. I think there's a lot of progress and there's a lot of opportunity going forward. And I keep thinking about like where we are today and where we'll be in the future. And we'll look back and be like, we were so early here. And like now the possibilities are endless, right? I'm curious from your perspective, being in the space for so long, what do you really see as like the North Star opportunity, both for FetchAI and then like the crypto AI ecosystem at a larger scale?
So if I just kind of position this question within the crypto space, I think crypto space has, as you probably have seen, it has always lacked some true utility at times, right? So we still have DeFi, which has some utility, right? And it still takes a lot of financial value in at the moment. It still lacks that ability for people to interact with it correctly. So that's one of the problems. BTC as a store of value, okay, that's established, but that doesn't have, that much of a actual utility for a consumer. So what this enables you to do really in the crypto space is it enables you to bring utility to crypto because it takes care of auditability because of the blockchain and the way it stores. It's not going to be that everything is going to be stored on blockchain. That's just not going to happen. It's inefficient. But what you can do is, if an agent carried out a transaction, you will have the ability to track it back and then actually be able to question it and still have the data to respond to that. So there's going to be a true utility coming to crypto, because most people don't want to deal with wallets, and the complex way the transactions happen,
100%.
and the complex way the DeFi does these transactions. Most people can't interact with it. And hence we still have the exchanges, and the peer-to-peer trading system hasn't evolved much. And again, one of the applications of our agents is a true peer-to-peer trading DEX, which creates, just between agents to agents transactions of tokens. But then comes, what are these tokens? Because these tokens could be, I don't know, where are they? They're just meme coins. They're, dogs with hats or whatever. But it doesn't matter. People want to trade it. There is something to be traded with. Yeah. And then you commodities to this space. So I think what this will unlock, the agents, the AI itself, the models that we're building, it will unlock utility in crypto. And I think that's really what I want to see in the short term becoming true very quick.
100%. My last request of you is something I ask all my guests. Can you leave us with a piece of advice, something that you've carried with you throughout your time in this space?
There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of hype. I think just please cut through it. Good things, proper technology takes time to be built. If somebody is just coming up with these ideas in 2 minutes and you're really investing in that kind of approach, be aware and be careful. I think follow the trend, but follow it sensibly, in the sense that look at what people are building and look at how much sense that makes. So that really, in the crypto space, especially when we know what happens to most of the meme coins.
Oh, yeah.
That would be my suggestion.
Exactly. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Jacquelyn.